Yes, this is another video about furries. However, this one is unscripted. The last one that I did wasn't. In all honesty, I just didn't have anything to record for this week, so I'm doing a furry story time. Again, I don't want to be called a furry, but I was one. And here's some stories based off of my fursuiting experiences when I was a furry. So, I really got into the fandom about 2015, and my first outside fursuiting experience was at Comic Con Glasgow 2015. And I'd been there the year prior, and if I remember, I put in some footage from that where I was introduced to Robot Wars and then promptly forgot about it, and now I'm pissed off. Because I believe there was a replica of maybe one of the house robots there. I'm not sure which one it would have been. But yeah, I went to Comic Con 2014, I loved it. Came back the next year in a whole fucking fursuit. With both my parents this time. So, my fursuit, I'm not gonna go into too much detail about it because I don't want you to fucking find pictures of it. And if you do find pictures of it online, good for you, I'm not looking at them. It was made by my mother. It was the first time she'd ever made something like that, and I honestly think she did a really good fucking job with it. However, it did look a bit homemade, and the design was not what I asked for. She has this fucking habit, she always has, of just doing something because she thinks it looks better, and then it turns out bad, and she says, "Isn't this what you wanted?" And I said, "No, I told you specifically not to do that." So she fucked up the ears, she fucked up the patterns on like the head and stuff. But whatever, I wore it to Comic Con for one day. And, you know, it's in Scotland, it was in September weekend. And it's cold, so I wasn't overheating, it was a partial fursuit, had the paws, had the feet, had the head. I was wearing a bunch of my old fucking horrible badges. Again, I'm not showing pictures of those. But you can imagine, based off of some of my old artwork, what they looked like. So, we're in the convention, like, we get in fine, and then I notice there's maybe only another, like, 10 people there in fursuits, which is probably the whole population of fursuiters in Scotland at the time. However, it's all fine. They didn't come up to me or anything that I remember. So this is my first experience, and my parents were just sort of looking out for me. Probably one of the most supportive things I've ever done, as I essentially came out to them as a furry, and then they took that well, and then when I came out to them as like trans and gay and shit like that, they took it really fucking bad, so I don't get it. Anyway, we're at the convention. Everything's going well, I'm going around looking at stuff and people are like, "Oh my god, I love your costume, oh my god." You know, like wanting photos and stuff. And I will say this, there is a photo out there with me in a fursuit next to someone dressed in a purple guy cosplay, and I fucking hate that. I hate FNAF so much, and at the time I was like, "Oh, this is fucking horrible." Like, the cosplay looked great, let me tell you, it did look good from what I can remember. But me being a furry who hated like the association with furries and FNAF at the time, and who looks back on it in like hindsight and absolutely despises FNAF, that was really weird. If you know the lore of FNAF, like, just not good, not fucking good whatsoever. So we're walking about, and you know, we go past some stalls. I realise Robot Wars isn't there, and I'm like, ah, fuck. I missed my chance to appreciate it, because even then I thought it was cool a year later. I didn't have my friends with me that year, they came the next year, and then there was no next year after it. I'll need to go back, maybe this year. But it was just, you know, a usual time, and we get around to this booth, and I'm sure it's, like, you know how every convention will have one stall that just sells anime bags with, like, anime characters on it and shit. So we went around to that area where, you know, they were selling the fursuit tails and all of that, and the banners, and even some body pillows, and I was like, what the fuck? My parents are also like, what the fuck? But it's all going well. Then another guy comes up to me and he's like, can I get a photo? At this point, everyone who like wants to come up to me and get a photo is from a diverse range of things. You know, you had the purple guy cosplayer, you just had some weebs, some other people, you know, and there was other grown-ass adults there, so I was just like, okay, let's take a photo with this guy. And this guy was like, maybe in his 30s, you know, just looked like your average white bloke. But he was like, oh, who made your fursuit? I was like, oh, my mum made it. It was the first time she made it. And he's like, oh, that's really good. It's really good. And like, at this point, I just sort of clock my eyes through the shitty fursuit mesh that he's wearing, like a brony t-shirt. And my mind just goes downhill. I'm like, oh, okay. But you know, I was thinking maybe he'll just, you know, evaporate. No, he starts like going over to like me and my mum, and with the way the tables were in the hallway, or the passageway, whatever you fucking call it, the walkway in between the tables, he lightly cornered us. It was like, oh hi, I'd like to like commission a fursuit from you and stuff. My mum was just doing this just for me, but he would not let it go and just like continued talking to her, and he got like his pictures out of his pony OC. He showed me a YouTube channel. I didn't remember it, what the name was and stuff, and my dad just sort of ushered me away because this guy went in too deep, too quick, to a child and their unsuspecting mother. And the rest of the convention was fine, but that was my first like memorable fursuiting experience. And kind of cringy, but you know, ultimately harmless. My next fursuiting experience, which was one of my final fursuiting experiences because I only used it 3 times before deciding, you know what, this doesn't look anything like my character, I really hate my parents, I'm very depressed, I'm not gonna do this anymore. And that was because I was actually really fucking depressed at the time. Anyway, my next fursuiting experience was at Halloween. Now, what I should have done was wore it to a Halloween party, or just not worn it at all. But no, I decided to go out on my own as like a 13-year-old little girl at the time, going out in the woods, in pitch black, because it's Scotland in October at fucking 8 o'clock at night, and walk around in a fursuit. Alone. Now, I'm a creepy motherfucker and I love going into the woods alone. Not at night anymore because, you know, that's scary. But back then I was just like, nah, whatever, I'm a furry, I'm gonna go into the woods alone at night as a child. In a dodgy place. I don't live in the dodgiest part of town, but it's really fucking close to it. So, you know, I could have just been stabbed, kidnapped, have the shit kicked out of me, have my fursuit stolen, used as a youth suit or whatever. Anything could have happened. And, you know, the worst that I did that night was scare my friends who were scared of people dressed up in mascot costumes, and I found it hilarious, and looking back at it, I still find it hilarious. So, you know, we're walking around the woods, I do eventually meet up with some friends, they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, I know, just go along with it. But some people are like, oh, it's actually really cool. But those that were freaked out with it, I would just keep freaking them out, because FNAF was popular at the time, and that's what they associated it with. I was like, you know what, I'll just go with it, it's Halloween, you know, be like a animatronic or whatever. Then it gets to the end of the night, we all split ways. I've got my bag of candy, I tell my classic joke, oh, what's a ghost's favourite DJ? The Boogeyman. Used that for 5 years in a row. People were getting disappointed by like the last year that I was using it, so, you know, go home alone. I was walking up past the woods, not in the woods, on the road next to the woods. And, you know, there's lots of woods in my town, whatever. I'm walking home, I'm almost home. This car pulls up beside me. But slows down, I think it was black as well, had tinted windows, kind of a sporty car. Don't know much about cars, couldn't tell you more than that. And there's probably a group of boys or something, and they just like stop, like roll the window down slightly, not a lot, just a little bit, and start like screaming and shouting shit at me. And back then I'm naive, but I also feel cocky and cool, so, you know, I'm like, whatever, and I just like wave a profanity through my thick, unmovable like fursuit hands. You can't move them. It was just thick foam no articulation. I try to do like a middle finger or something, it just looks like me putting up a paw. And they eventually drive off. In hindsight, looking back at this, I could have just been stabbed or kidnapped. And I shouldn't have done this alone at night as a child. You know, my parents shouldn't even have allowed this either. They should have like had someone there. I think I even might have lied to them saying, oh yeah, I'll be with people the entire time. But a group of like 3 children plus 1 child fursuiter isn't really gonna fend off someone who wants to beat the living shit out of a furry. So yeah, shouldn't have done that. And I believe there was another experience where I put the fursuit on and I remember now, I did videos because I was going to do like a series of videos in a fursuit and I was going to bring in all my other characters and talk about furry stuff. Then I heard my voice and I was like, oh fuck no. Cue dysphoria, yippee! You know, so that didn't happen and then I never wore the fursuit again. My mum spent hundreds of pounds making that. And like even bought, for some reason, official Crocs to use for the feet. Not even off-brand ones. And I'm really pissed off because I want to go and rip them apart to get the Crocs because I love Crocs. But they're just ruined because she just put hot glue directly onto them. Anyway, those are my first and only fursuiting experiences. I do kind of want to get another fursuit head or 2 of maybe of my characters, but that's mainly just because it's my characters and I love them so much. It would be Chiron and Wicker, who's the like mascots of this channel before Pompey, so yeah. Just a little story time video. I've no idea what I'm gonna call this series. I've got lots of stories to tell from the decrepit pits of Scotland and my experiences in various fandoms, but that was my experiences fursuiting, and I will never ever fursuit again in public unless it's at a furry convention. Which will probably never happen. Probably. Maybe.